Speaking of influencers and sometimes people not being genuine, have you ever, and you don't have to list names, but have you ever worked with someone out in the field, trying to do photography of them that is trying to look like they know what they're doing, but they just don't?
Yeah, Kid Rock.
Yeah. This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Leupold, American to the core.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, episode number 215. Thank you, audience. Thank you. I'm Tim Chelsvik.
I'm Matt Drury.
They're clapping for you.
That's right. The guy is hooting and hollering for me. They're clapping for you.
The spring.
They're really excited about me being on the podcast today.
People love you. What can I say?
Well, I don't know about that. This is a fake audience. Yeah, those people do.
They love us a lot.
The real audience you're going to worry about.
What's new, man?
Well, it's getting that time of year where it's super duper hot outside, and we're deciding to do some work on the property, and I still really haven't been there much. So
yeah,
I'm getting into that mode though, because we're working on the TV shows. All the new TV shows launch here next week, and so going through all the trail camera pictures for the editors and sending them stuff, and so looking at some of those velvet pictures, it's like, all right, starting to it's starting to click that trigger inside my head. It's getting to be that go time. So, I'm excited about today because we got a guest on that. Mark, Terry, myself, Taylor, we think very, very highly and fondly of this guy and his family, and we've known him for a long time. And I think the audience is going to get a real kick out of this, and maybe put a face and name to some images that they've been looking at for years and years and years.
Really? Yeah. We got fellow Norwegian Lee Kjos on with us.
What's up, Lee? How's it going, buddy?
Hey, dude. Nice to hear from you again.
That's right, man. It's been a while.
Guys?
We're good. We were talking just off camera there a second ago about how, we've mentioned this with a few of our guests, that because there was no trade shows, we didn't get our annual meetup. And I hate it because the business side is one part of it. That's all fine and dandy, but the relationships that you've made throughout the years and guys like you, you said it, it's the only chance we get to see each other unless there's a photo shoot or something that we're on. We probably should backtrack and say what it is you do and how we know each other though.
Well, I mean, part of it for me, you know the name Mike Scobie in the industry, right? Now, he's like part of the, OSG group and like Guns and Ammo and all that. We were talking the other day, and I said, hey, dude, am I the only son of a bitch that misses SHOT Show? And he's like, because everybody bitches about it. They all do.
Yeah.
Like, you come home and they got the SHOT Show crud. They bitch about it, whatever. Not me, dude. I love the SHOT Show. And here I'm going to tell you why. It got nothing to do with business. Because you, quite honestly, not even COVID could stop business from happening.
That's right.
Right? We're going to find a way to make it happen. But what it did is it separated us. It's like separated the community. And that I didn't like. I mean, I miss seeing your dad, your uncle, you, your sister. I miss seeing Lee and Tiffany. There's a number of people that I may only see once a year if it's not for like a trade show or a consumer event, right? And no, dude, I didn't like it at all.
It's personal relationships that have been affected. It's that, like you said, like coming up and giving somebody a hug. I mean, that's it, dude. That's it. That's the relationship, right? It's the connection with somebody.
A lot of people, throughout the years of I don't know, maybe for your listenership here, maybe they don't know like the photography that I've done for a number of years, 3 decades or whatever. But, like people go like that saying, they go, well, it's just business. Well, no, it's not just business. Not to me. It's not, right? It's all personal to me. Right? Like the first time I shot your dad and your uncle, right? No, dude, that's not business. That's personal. We had a blast. There was I mean, I don't need to tell you what your dad and your uncle are like. I mean, like
he's self-censoring.
They're A+. They're 5-star people, right? Your whole family. I mean, no, that's personal.
Yeah,
that's not business.
This picture,
the business is already going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We have a picture of that photo shoot that you gave those guys. I think it's that photo shoot that you sent those guys almost looks like a canvas painting version of it. Yeah. And
I love the pic. I have a brother, right? My older brother.
Yeah.
And I photographed that picture of your dad, and your uncle. And I was looking at it. You know how I retouch and I make art. And I looked at that. And I'm like, God, would I like a picture of that? Like that of me and my brother someday. Well, we don't have one.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but I can do it for those two.
So that photo shoot, it's classic because that scene and that, just so you know, that portrait is on every single podcast. It's in most of our DoD TV. Like that's part of our set here. And it's internally, it's one of my favorites through time of the guys or the four of us or whatever. It's because the joy that they're showing. I know what you were saying to them behind the scenes to get them to react that way. Yeah. And it was probably a little R-rated, but that's really? It was fun. You were having fun and you were yelling at them to have fun. And, that's what came out of it, a true moment of joy there.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. I used to yell back in the day. I don't yell much anymore, but I used to.
They liked it. They liked to be yelled at, which is weird because they like to yell at people.
It's just their language.
That's how they communicate, yelling.
For folks that are tuning in and trying to figure out like where are we going here, Lee is one of the best photographers out there. Like killer, Kjos Outdoors.
And I don't care what industry. It just so happens you happen to be in our industry, but you, like you said, you create art, and that's what you could be in any industry. Yeah.
So when he says he shot Mark and Terry, talking about cameras.
Yeah, photography.
Yep.
Kjos Outdoors, correct?
Yep, Kjos Outdoors. Yeah, I mean that was my business for a long time. For sure.
So I wanted to backtrack a little bit, and I love hearing the stories. I definitely want to kind of dive back into some of your favorite moments there with the guys or with whoever. But in general, go back in time for me. And you weren't. So when we go to a trade show, it's interesting because you'll see Lee walking around, and a lot of time his son Luke is with him, and these guys walk around. You're always like, man, are these guys rock stars? Like if you didn't know who they were, you would think by the way they dress and look that they came out of some, like
ZZ Top,
like Allman Brothers. That's these guys are, like
Allman Brothers.
That's right. That's Lee's. That's his jam. So they walk around and they got this leather bound book that he makes every year. It's a special thing because if you've made the book, it's like his best shots from the year. It's his work. It's his, it's his livelihood right here. He walks around and if you catch him or if you're lucky enough, you might take a peek at this year's book. Cool. And it's art. The book itself is art. And every year it's different. And so if you didn't know who Lee was, you always wondered like, hey, who is that guy? I see him talking to this celebrity or that celebrity or this big business person or that. It's like, who is this guy? And finally, I found out who he is. It's like, man, the rock star status that you would think these guys are, it couldn't be further from the truth as far as how they are from a personality.
It's refreshing.
Personalities are bigger than life, and that's what we love from you guys.
Right. No, I mean, if you ask, because of podcasts today, how different, times are now compared to how they were, years ago when I saw your dad and your uncle, I mean, podcasts are relevant now and social media is relevant and, and much of it is like, I don't know, I hate to say this, but much of it's not quite as authentic as it used to be back in the day,
Yep.
So like if somebody asks, when they do on a podcast, people will ask like, what influenced your work? How did you get to where you are? This, that, man, what influenced my work? Wow. Well, I mean, my dad would be first, right? My dad was like a traveling sportsman before traveling was a thing, right? So, in the 50s, right? So by the mid 70s, I was traveling, I was in 4 different provinces in Canada, Alaska, 13 states. I was 12, 13-year-old boy, and I fished and hunted ducks and geese in like everywhere, like big time, like on a high level, like to the point where you'd say I was born to it. Because I really didn't have a choice. Not that I don't mind that, because I love everything about my life. Let's not confuse that. I love it, right? But it was like, oh, dude, you're gonna. This is what you're gonna do. Well, other influences were, to me, first of all, I hate plagiarism. Hate it. Can't stand it. Can't stand plagiarism. Right? I love original work. Okay. So my influence never came from photography or anything like that. And not ever. Right? My influence came from the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, like what I looked like, what I dressed like. I didn't know that. I didn't look at it and go, well, I want to look just like Greg Allman. And that's not how it went. But those days, like those album jackets, like some of the albums were like double covers, right? You'd open them up and you'd clean your pot, you'd clean the seeds and stems on that double trod, that's what you did. That was part of it's not weird and it's not bad. It's just the way it was. It's part of culture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite honestly, that's what I'm into. And Matt, this, you've seen my work throughout the years. I'm into the culture that's going on at the time. What influenced me back when I was a child is what I try to do now.
Yeah.
Am I old school? Yeah, for sure I am. I totally get it. Right? Maybe I've even outlasted maybe I've like outgrown my years. I don't know, but
I think the authenticity is why you are a hot commodity in our industry, because there's so much of the same in our industry, right? Like there's so much that looks, so somebody comes out with a cool look, 5 people are going to copy that cool look. Like that's how it is. Somebody comes out with a cool new edit or weighted edit or a show or a look that's going to get knocked off. Like our industry
happens to us all the time with this show.
Yeah,
a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. Our industry is famous for just being a knockoff industry. And that's just the reality of it. Whether you come out with a brand new call, somebody's going to come out with that same exact call. They're going to rip you off. And that's just the reality of it. And I think what sets you apart is that authenticity. So what your history, your background has created something that was different for what we saw in our world.
Yeah. Part of the authenticity all of it. I'm going to give all of the credit to my mother and father, right? I grew up on a small hunting and fishing lodge in northern Minnesota, very, very modest, okay? And we ate snowshoe rabbits and rough grouse and woodcock, and we netted whitefish, and we fished. And we were major duck hunters, right? So part of growing up for us was not only taking care of wild game and eating wild game, but the habitat and conservation that it took to maintain that. I knew that as a little kid, right? So that's where the authenticity comes from, right? I personally, and I bet you talk to your dad and your uncle, and habitat trumps everything.
Yep.
It trumps everything.
Yep.
Without that, you and I don't have a job.
That's
We're
for sure.
jobless.
Yeah.
That's it. So when you look at authenticity and you go, well, yeah, I mean, his photography is cool and his post-production is cool and he works for this brand. Yeah, I mean, that's all awesome. That it really is. It's cool. It's been a great life, right? But that's only one part of it. I want them to look past that. I want them to look farther. Like, what makes this dude tick? Right?
Yep.
Habitat and conservation make me tick. That's it. That's what does it.
I never really knew that about you until, a few years ago, Jason Brown over at Rusted Rooster and myself, we came up to do a shoot with you and Luke and the crew, as you called it. And your home place is just beautiful. I mean, just the home place there was just, you could tell it was all about habitat. It reminded me of going in a much different way because it was about not only deer and it was about waterfowl. It was about a lot of things, but it reminded me of going to Mark or Terry's place where everything they do on the farm is about habitat. The difference is his habitat surrounded his home. It was his actual home place. Yeah. And it was, I don't know, man, everything about it, going back to that word authenticity, everything about it was authentic. And then you get into the house and the house is a one of a kind. And then he's building this barn, which is what he's in right there. And at the time he was building it or finishing it, I should say. And it was authentic.
Have you seen it since?
Not since that day. No.
Oh, dude, you got to come up here and see it. It's really cool.
I'd love to. It was just,
I hope someday, like, I'm serious, dude, about this COVID thing. It really, really bummed me out, and not because of the illness.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I get the flu sucks, right?
You're a people person. You're a personality person.
My God,
you
dude.
feed off of that, right? You feed off of that.
Not seeing my friends that I've had for 25 years. Yeah, no, dude, that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
No, not cool.
So, Lee, when you look across the outdoor industry right now, in your opinion, we talk about authenticity and being genuine. What's missing? Like, what would you like to see more of?
I'd love to see people celebrate the sport of hunting and fishing again, like they used to back in the day, versus self-gratification on social media for the post. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
No. People that I photographed and did all this stuff 4 years ago, they go, oh my God, he's just a crotchety old fuck, right? Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah, I kind of am.
I don't know. I think a lot of those people would agree with you.
Well, in what it is because they're missing the sport, right? They like it. I don't feel people celebrate the sport of hunting and fishing anymore. I really don't. Yeah. I think they look at like what happens that day, and they all have names for it, and then they post it. And if it's like big time or over the top, it gets likes, which, yeah, to me, dude, it's not my bag, dude. It's not my bag.
And it's something that I miss because I was fortunate enough to have this growing up. I grew up in north central Illinois when my dad killed a deer or caught a big fish or caught a snapping turtle out fishing, brought it home in the bed of the truck. All the neighbors came over and we all gathered around the bed of the truck, and it was like Christmas, like what's in there? Talk about the hunt. And it was a community event. And same thing with other guys in the neighborhood. They'd pull up and, hey, Bill, come on over, check this out.
The check-in station, right?
That's another version of that.
Bloomsdale going to Dewdrop, and that was it was just the place. It was the bar, it was the local bar, but you'd go there to check something in, and then maybe Mark and Terry just wouldn't leave.
Maybe.
Oh, no. Guaranteed they didn't leave. Guaranteed they didn't.
But that's what we're missing. And it's, you can reach more people this way. Yes.
Sure.
But you back to your comment about the last year, you're missing out on the connection, the personal connection. And there's all kinds of studies that go into what it is firing. It's almost like a drug, what it fires inside your brain and why you're getting some sort of like
the dopamine
hit off of it. But you're missing the personal connection. And I noticed, I just ahead of this, I went and looked to see if there was any updates on your pages, and it's been a long time.
No.
And what's interesting to me is that the stuff that you did post, because I went back and just kind of reread through it, and it's like, man, you were telling stories in your posts, and it's like, man, all this stuff is fantastic. But I get what you mean. You just don't. It's just not you. It's not authentic to you, even though the posts that you did do were great. They were fantastic. They were telling stories. Like, that's the Lee that I know and love. I could picture you. I could hear you saying these things that you were typing out, but it's just not the same, is it?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I try to, there's many things when I was a kid growing up that I think were like, well, dads were different and kids were different, and the lessons that they were taught were way different. And if I could do anything, I would change narratives in the outdoor world where they went back to conservation and habitat, like everything, like how you approach archery hunting, right? Like, are you going to get as good at this as you can? Accurate, very good at killing. No lost game, right? That same thing in the shotgun world with ducks, right? Are you going to do what you have to do to get better at being effective at killing? Dude, don't get me wrong. I love killing. Love it. Love killing it. Love cleaning it. Love eating it, right? Food by proxy to me is like, yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's fine for everybody else. But I mean, like going and getting your own game and the experience that you have doing it. Yeah, dude, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like patterning your shotgun, shooting your bow, like getting really proficient with it so that when you attempt to take a life of an animal, you're good at it. Mm-hmm. Right? That's important to me. All of it. Same, yeah, it all is. Fishing, water, clean air, habitat for, oh my God, dude, I could go on and on about programs.
I heard someone recently. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just to say, I heard someone recently talking about a concept called mastering the mundane. And that's what a lot of us as outdoorsmen do. It's not just about uncasing the gun at the, on opening morning and going out and shooting something or hoping to fling an arrow and maybe hit a deer in the vitals. When you are interested and you care about the pursuit, you spend the time mastering the mundane, the things that aren't necessarily fun, but that I've got to, like, this is my craft. I've got to get better at this because it's important. And
100%.
And you start to value that process.
That's what always amazes me about, we all know the guys that'll, during archery season, they'll pull the bow out, the day, they may not even practice like in the days leading up to the hunt. And then they'll go out and they don't practice before they go. Like, I can't not shoot my bow before I go on a hunt. I don't feel right about it. It's like, man, I gotta make sure it changes. And if I don't, I kind of say you were rushing to the stand. It's like, shit, I couldn't shoot before I went out tonight. It was just so strange. One of those times. Yeah. And I'm almost hopeful something doesn't come out because I don't want to,
I've been in the same
like,
boat,
man, I don't know how I'm going to shoot. And I don't know why I feel like that, but it's almost a nervous energy that it's like, God, it was something, the mundane. That's like, that's my step. That's my process. I have to shoot before we go out, every time.
Yeah. There's been times I've not gone hunting because I've been shooting so terribly and I can't figure out what's wrong. Yeah. And I'm just like, my younger self probably would have gone out. I'm just very honest, speaking honestly, I probably would have gone out. But anymore, it's just so important to make a good hit.
I was wondering why you missed the month of October last year.
Are you sure you miss him, Lee?
There. Yeah.
Hey-o.
So I want to talk a little bit about some of the craziest places, because I remember vividly going when you and I and Jason and the crew were there shooting for this pilot program we were trying to put together. You were talking about a story going to, like, was it the northern tip of Alaska, the Bering Sea, kind of somewhere in there? Was that where you guys were shooting? And it was just like you were just getting rattled with waves, and like these are the kind of things that imagery that you brought back from that shoot is just freaking crazy. You guys were also shooting on red.
It could be that one. It could be the Nunavut's, like when we're in the Nunavut territories, but like those two places, the Aleutian Chain or St. Paul Island.
I think that might be
what you're talking about. Yeah. So like the Aleutian Chain. So, it goes all the way out there. Right.
Yep.
And could be that, could be St. Paul, could be the Nunavut's. Wild stuff. But as far as photographing goes, St. Paul was rough, really rough. Wind, not necessarily the temperature. The temperature is always around 20, 25 to 34, something like that, but the wind was, they call it the rock, the wind was unreal, right? Like you'd have wind that was 90 miles an hour. So you'd have a typhoon warning wind, and it would shut you down for days, right? And then you'd go out and try to shoot in it, and it would kill 2 cameras, right? There's really no way around it. You got to work. You got to get work done, but it's going to kill it, right? And you'd go, well, why don't you shoot in a housing? Well, there's only so much you can do in a housing, right?
Yeah.
They're not very flexible. So you're like, you take a chance, you're risky, right? You do this, and like, Jesus, like the screen would go black. It's like they're dead. So I think on one shoot on the rock out there on St. Paul, I think we killed in a week. I think we killed like four cameras or so on one.
Not cheap cameras either. Not cheap equipment.
No. Well, here's the other thing, because you and I are just trying to make a living, right? So like we work for multiple clients,
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, dude, I don't want to pay your day rate. Your day rate sucks. It's like, oh my God, dude, now I got to pay you a retouch. Oh, fuck, I don't want to do that. I just spent $7,000 on one body.
Yeah.
And I killed 2. So that's $14,000.
Yeah.
And then they'd go, well, yeah, insurance covers it. Well, okay, you can do that one time, and then the insurance company drops you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my point is that hardcore shit that we do, no, dude, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're at a different level for a reason. Your images show up in places,
right?
For a reason. People knock on your door for a reason. So you got to pay the price, right? And that's where it boils down to. But our industry, again, is notoriously cheap.
Right. If I can save somebody money, dude, I'm going to save you money. That's one thing you'll know. I never waste my clients' money, ever.
You guys are getting your time. You use your time wisely. You get in and you get to work. You guys are hard workers and jump through hoops and get the shot.
Yep.
Yeah, I could think of images where Luke, your son, he's crossing what looks to be a river rapid with like an elk on top of him, and all kinds of crazy shots. These guys, like, you see stuff like that from now and then, but these guys were the originators, right?
Sure.
These are the guys that pioneered those shots.
I'm not sure, but I kind of think some of the work we did, back in the day kind of influenced the way things were done going forward. Mm-hmm. Some of it.
Oh, I think so. And I think it also influenced, you talk about social media. I think it influenced the way people try to get images for social media, whether it's with a DSLR, an iPhone, or whatever it is. I think they're all trying to one up. It's a one up group, and everybody's trying to one up and get the best shot or the coolest shot or the most badass shot or whatever it is.
Right.
And
it's really not how you do it, That's not what it's about.
It's the wrong reasons to do it.
Yeah, it's really not what it's about. It's not. So if somebody asks me like, well, then what is it about? Right? Okay. If you've ever read my feed or on the boss feed, I don't like social media by nature.
Yeah.
I don't like it at all. Right. I do it because I really have to do it, but it's really not my bag. And you'd go, well, why? You tell stories, you do this. Well, there's part of it I like, parts of it I like, but part of it I don't. The part I like is when somebody when they engage me. It's kind of like being at a hardware store back in the 60s or early 70s when I was a kid. You go to a hardware store and they had a Winchester Model 12 on the rack, and they had Winchester XX6 copper plated, shells on the, just like way, way good stuff. And you could talk to the dude and the dude would answer you.
He knew stuff.
It even could be the wife that owned the shop.
Yeah.
I shouldn't just say dude. That's not right. That's not even accurate. It could, because it was family owned.
Yeah.
And they owned a Gamble's or a Coast to Coast or a local hardware store. And you'd go in there and you'd say, hey, I'm going rough grouse hunting today. What do you think I should? Here, take this, do this. Do you have your license? No, let's do your license out. Do you have orange? They knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
They live the lifestyle too.
They're just like us, dude. Just like us.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge difference in today's culture versus a handful of decades ago. And don't get me wrong, there's shit tons of like what's going on now that is cool, really cool. And including social, because the voice could be used for great things. I don't think it is that much.
By and large, no. By and large, it's about self-promotion and it's about advancement. Like in our industry, and this is not, you see it in all industries, but in ours, it's all about how can I further my career? And they're looking at it the wrong way. Like when Mark and Terry and you get started in the 80s and the 90s, like guys weren't looking to make it a career. No. It was a hobby.
Yeah, there was no industry.
It wasn't. Yeah, you're right. There was no industry. And so now I think there's a real struggle going on between the audience and now the influencer. And what the Michael Waddell's and the Lee and Tiffany's and the Mark and Terry's and like when the Bill Jordans, then Toxie Hayes, when they started, they were living their passion. And that's why they became successful.
It's a lot of risk involved.
Yeah.
Too.
And now people see the glamorous, quote unquote, glamorous side of it and say, I want to do that for a living. I want to hunt for a living. I'd love to hunt for a living. I hear that all the time. It's like, well, we don't hunt for a living, but okay.
We would love that too.
That 100%.
And so they do it for the wrong reasons. It's like, it's about self-promotion and how can I become famous? Well, the audience sees it. And it's a weird thing because our audience obviously is by and large a younger male audience. And so if you can have an Instagram, a female that's a good looking girl that can kill some stuff and she's good at posting, like they're good at posting stuff and they do it all the time and they don't have any filter, like they're going to get a lot of followers. We shoot ourselves in the foot in that regard. It's like they just can't help themselves because the audience likes to complain about that. Like, man, they're in for the wrong reasons, but they can't help themselves and they still follow it. And we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it because we have social media following and we're posting to share with that audience.
Right.
I think the problem is the companies in the industry have also, I mean, you're turning a real blind eye to this if you don't think, or you're really naive if you don't think our industry has to do it just like everybody else's industry does. Like, it's the way that people are reaching the masses now, and it is the future. And the real issue is we've turned something that was a hobby and a passion into something that's become a business as a whole. And people don't like that because it isn't baseball. It isn't football. It's not sport in that regard. It's something that you live and feel inside your soul. And so they don't like the idea of that and business and self-promotion all kind of getting wrapped up into one. That's the reality of it, right, Lee?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much that has gone on in a number of decades between, I mean, I was born in 60. I'm 61 years old. So I grew up in late, you couldn't call it the early 60s. I was born in 60s. So, but when I was hunting and fishing, I mean, it was the late 60s, but certainly the 70s, I was like on fire, cutting my teeth then, right? And the narrative is radically different between then and now. I mean, I could tell you stories back in the 70s about like where I grew up in northern Minnesota, which was remote. It was a remote area. I mean, on the school bus, there was 9 seniors, right?
Big class.
So yeah, big class, right? There were 9 of us. I married one of them. Super cool chick. B.
Yeah.
Super cool. So you'd look back then at the way things were done. And when you guys, when it comes to whitetail deer, are elite, right? I mean, you're the Duries, right?
Oh, two of us.
Well, Terry.
Not it.
No, you are. I mean, you are. When I grew up as a kid, it was the opening of deer hunting season or the deer hunting season, which was like 10 days long. So 2 weekends and a week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was woven into the fabric of the whole area I lived in and where I went to school. So much so that in 6th grade, hunter safety was a class in 6th grade.
Wow.
Think about that. Think about that compared to today. Think about that in comparison to the narratives that are in our media today. Okay. Then on top of that, the boys, not the girls, only the boys got out of class Friday before the deer hunting opener on Saturday morning to work on deer stands, not the girls.
Wow.
Think about that, dude. What?
Be a lot of trouble these days.
The women. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right? So in back then, you never even thought about that. You didn't think, oh, that's weird. Yeah, of course. That's what the chicks do. Yeah, dude, that's not cool, man.
Yeah.
That's not cool. There's a whole bunch of cool chicks out there that, by the way, dude, I've been on a number of podcasts and I get roasted for calling girls chicks. I want them to know that is a total term of endearment.
Yeah. They got to know
you a chick.
Yeah.
That's good, dude.
You're also calling guys dudes. So
these are all terms of endearment from him. I mean, that's
oh, they all are. For sure.
You saying like growing up in the 70s, like that's who you are. You're an old soul hippie kind of a guy, man. That's a rock and roll. That's the beauty of it. That's why we love you. So they're just gonna have to bite their tongues on this one.
It's just part of the deal. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Speaking of influencers and sometimes people not being genuine, have you ever, and you don't have to list names, but have you ever worked with someone out in the field, trying to do photography of them that is trying to look like they know what they're doing, but they just don't?
Yeah. Kid Rock. Yeah, it's fucking horrible. It's like putting fucking needles in my head.
In what way? Like, what was he trying to do?
Well, I mean, it was awful. Just awful. Like, what? Let's see. Let's go from Mark and Terry Dury, who do this shit fucking day in and day out for their whole life, and let's shoot Hollywood. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, use your imagination.
Yeah, it was awful. But let me tell you this, because I don't want people to think people in the media that come off as like a sportsman aren't legit. I also photographed Tom Brokaw, and that dude was as cool as they get.
Wow.
I mean, just an awesome person. So, I mean, I photographed a number of like celebrities in my day shooting, but quite honestly, I mean, what I love to shoot is people that are real. They're authentic, just like me. That's it. That's what I like to do. Always have.
I think, and who knows, you may have done this before, but man, a series where it was just people from your average guy or girl that are whatever their skill or craft may be, doing it, you know, and because they got a passion, and following them around and seeing the passion shine through. Like that's, I think, would move the needle in a lot of ways for a brand or a company. And I guess you do see some of that on social media now and then, where they're like, oh, they latched on to somebody because they use the right hashtag. And then they, you know, say, okay, now you're an ambassador. I could think of like Alex Templeton. She's a farmer or rancher, her and her family or dad in Missouri. And you see a lot of stuff from her. She's very authentic, you know? And so that kind of stuff I could see where it would be a cool series, you know, just following.
Yeah, it's legit.
Yeah. Following what they do every day.
Well, pretty soon I'm going to be a fitness influencer.
Hold on.
Watch it.
My God, dang it. I'm horrible at this. Let's see.
It's funny. A guy that's so good with a camera is so bad with his iPhone.
You didn't ask me to take pictures, dude.
Send us a series of snapshots.
I want to know how much you hate the iPhone and the, like, everybody's got a camera in their pocket these days. You know, that's got to have changed a little bit of how you approach, or how it has to affect you in some way, or the DSLR even. Like, a lot of people can pick up a DSLR and not necessarily have any training, but become really good at it.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at, do you consider social media part of your brand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a big part anymore.
Me too. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like iPhone photography is part of the mix now. So think about the amount of photographers that there are now compared to when I was, you know, in the game, like 25 years ago, right? When I started. Right. I mean, I shot film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
For those younger people watching, pictures used to go onto a physical media called film,
and you'd have to develop it in a dark room.
You wait like 3 or 4 days for it to get developed, and then it would come back to you.
Well, did you used to develop it yourself? Did you have a dark room?
No. Well, no. I mean, you learn how to do that, but no, I didn't do that. No, Pro Color in Minneapolis, I'm trying to find a good
angle there. Yeah.
The light moved in that window, and now it's like way blown out.
Like an angel.
Too hot.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had to take a class in college because it was media degree basically. So you had to take all these general electives, and I took one on this and darkroom and all that. Like, it was difficult.
Can't imagine.
Right.
Easy to mess up though.
Oh yeah. There's a lot to it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, looking back through your time, how did you get into photography? 25, 30 years ago, what were you doing before you were doing this for a living?
I was a medical illustrator.
Whoa.
Like I illustrated like angioplasty surgery for SciMed, Pfizer, like Boston Scientific, companies like that.
Yeah.
Big stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you were actually physically drawing out how it would work, or the organs, or
Yeah. Like I'd talk to a doctor and then work on a cadaver and then work on like lesions, fatty lesions in the cadaver, and look at them like what fat looked like in a vessel. And then I would get my head wrapped around like a balloon catheter and what that looked like coming down a vessel like a freight train, and then fucking blowing the fat out so that you could get blood flow. And that's angioplasty surgery.
So you would draw this out then. You would draw, and you'd have a map for them to follow, basically.
Oh, yeah. Old school, dude. Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah.
Man draws a mean aorta. Who would have guessed?
I would have I had no idea. I had no idea how you got started.
Yeah.
That's got to be a niche industry.
And then, honest to God, like back in the beginning of like the digital revolution.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my office one day, and I was always pretty handy with a camera back then. And I shot something, and then like I figured out how to get that photograph into a computer. Now, think about what I'm talking about right now, how wild that is.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't done that. It was like, this is new shit, right? So I'd take that photograph and I got it into the computer as a scan, and I would make a pict file, .pict file, pict file out of it, bring it into Illustrator, and then I do the hardwire, right? The vector. Then I would take that whole vector file of that illustration, like isometric, right? Like honest to God, just like a catheter coming down a vessel like a freight train.
Yeah.
Like right like that, right into you. And then I take that. Then one day I'm like, man, I wonder if I like take this vector file and I drag it right on top of Photoshop. So I dragged it on top of Photoshop, and all of this window came up, and it's like rasterizing, blah, 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 5 hours and 45 minutes. And I'm like, well, fuck, I'm going to go eat lunch and call everybody I know and have fun for 5 hours and come back.
I'm working.
Well,
it's a 33 kilobyte file.
Dude, I come back and it's like, it's rasterized on my desktop. So then I look at it and I'm like, well, holy shit, dude. So then I started to dodge and burn and contrast and do all the like basic edits that you would do in Photoshop and post. And I learned that. And quite honestly, I became like an expert in the world of that.
Yeah.
But kind of by default.
By a drag and drop.
Because not really because I was any good at it, but because I understood it. And that really catapulted me. Then I met a client, Tom Dokken, who came up with his deadfall trainer. I met him pheasant hunting out in South Dakota, out by Chamberlain, South Dakota. And we were having dinner one night, just buddies that hook up because we got two dogs. I got a dog. He's got a dog. We're alone, and we're pheasant hunting out in the middle of nowhere. And we had dinner one night. And he showed me this product he had. He goes, God, he goes, do you think I could, how would I get this product to market? Well, I did that one. And then that one product, once we took it to the SHOT Show, that one product turned into, I mean, if I told you the run I was on for a half a dozen years, it was it was crazy.
Jeez.
It really was nuts, right? I mean, Tony Stewart, the NASCAR champion for Old Spice, at Saatchi & Saatchi, the agency in New York, and then that turned into Eukanuba, and Eukanuba dog food got me into the big time national field champion, the national amateur field champ. That got me into the hunt space. It was nuts. You can't even make it up. You can't.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre, the run that I was on for a while. And, quite honestly, somebody could ask me like, well, what's your plan right now? And I'd go, I don't know, dude. I've never had a plan.
Why start now?
I don't know.
Done pretty well with that.
I literally do. I wake up in the morning and I do what's in front of me that day. Man, I love life. I love it.
It's a way to live.
I think it's worked out so well for you because the work speaks for itself. And so there's constantly something, somebody saw something along the line and it's like, man, we got this new product or this new thing's coming out. We should give Lee a call. Who did that shot for so-and-so? Hey, for years there, you were doing all the Under Armour stuff. And I don't know if you still are or not, but that was a huge client, obviously. And I'm sure that catapulted you into some Mossy Oak stuff.
You know what? In all honesty, and I'm not saying this because you're on the phone and I want your listeners to know that I'm not shilling for anybody, but years ago I got asked, and I believe it was Terry, and he had a mad buck growl.
Mark. Yeah, it was Mark. Yep.
Yeah, Mark. It was Mark. It was Matt. Yeah. Mad calls. Yeah. Mark. Boy, it was a long time ago. I mean, good Lord, that's got to be pretty close to 20 years ago.
That's what that photo shoot was from, that original one that we got the canvas. I think so.
Really?
I think so.
I don't know. You might know better. All I know, it was a long time ago. And I remember that buck growl, like doing the logo, the pack, making that metal badge, the packaging and getting that ready so that your dad and uncle could go to bring that to retail.
Yep. They sold a bunch of them too, the buck growl.
And it was an ungodly tight deadline, right? I mean, it was the kind of deadline where back in the day, you didn't sleep. Like you worked all night, right? You worked around the clock.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And then, that was new back then when we did that. That was new shit, right? And then that turned into a number of things, right? But isn't that how organic work is?
Yeah.
Like when you're authentic, when you don't give a fuck about money, when that's not why you do it, when you do it for love of work, people doing the right thing, you do that. And then it's like
the rest follows.
All kinds of stuff comes your way. You can't even make it up. But that's really what it was like back then.
Wow, what a ride.
A great ride.
So coming full circle, what are you doing today? You got some cool projects that you've been working on. Kind of give us an update on where Lee Kjos is today and what you're up to.
Well, I mean, most of my time, I still do a little Kjos work for people, especially people that I really like. Like, so if your dad or your uncle called me and said, "Hey, Kjos, would you?" Well, yeah, of course, dude. I mean, you guys are my buddies. I mean, of course I would do that. But other than that, the Boss Shot Shell Company is what keeps me busy today. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's a really cool shot shell company. Like very, very good, very cool narrative. Very into habitat and conservation, and that's it.
So what made you jump into that? I mean, obviously you've been a waterfowl guy your whole life, but what made you take the leap into making it a business as far as shot shells go?
Well, a dude that his name's Brandon, and he's like a generational metal plater in Michigan. And he came up with this shell, and it's like the best one, right? So it's super cool. And he had it. He talked to a number of people in the industry, doing his homework, not knowing us, not knowing our world at all. And he asked some people, and he heard my name come up a few times. Like, and his question was, I have this killer product. Who could help me like bring it to life. Who could do this? So he heard my name a number of times and he called me, and one day he like got on a plane. He flew up here to my barn. You know, you've been in the barn, and we chat. And I'm like, well, I really love it. I love the old school narrative. You know, I love it. So I decided to do it, and that's pretty much what I'm up to now. I love it. Yeah.
Cool.
So you guys was a year old, 2 years old? Like, it's a fairly new. I know that, right?
Yeah, we're 2 years old. We'll be 3 October. I think October 6th, I think is the day.
And so that narrative, what is the narrative that makes it such an authentic piece, or what, you know, just kind of 30,000 foot view of it?
Yep. Okay. So first of all, it's like we have narratives, right? There's narratives that I think needs to be changed. One of them is back in the day, in 91, when lead was outlawed and we had to go to steel. I think the big companies went to steel because it's cheap, not because it's good. It's cheap. Well, quite honestly, it's garbage. It's not cheap, it's garbage, right? That's cool. You can don't weed any of that out. If you edit you can edit my swearing out, but not that. It's garbage. Okay, so
man has principles.
It adds to the crippling rate, which the crippling rate is roughly, from talking to biologists and other big time organizations that do this, crippling rate is like 3.4 to 3.7 million ducks and geese are lost a year due to crippling.
Jeez.
Okay.
That's insane.
So I look at that number as alarming. So I'm like, what can I do to cut that down? So first of all, yes, you can shoot a good shell, a really good shell. And you could go, well, that's why you're doing this, because you want to sell. No, dude, no. I don't care what shell you shoot. I care that we cut that number in half. And cutting that number in half is learning how to pattern your gun, learning what choke to shoot, learning what shell to choke or what shell to shoot, and then practice, and then eliminate your crippling rate. I mean, that's really on us. We don't need a legislative change. We don't need better habitat conditions. We don't need more rain to raise. We don't need shit. That's on us. Now, I'll ask you, your dad. Okay. Look, Mark and Terry. Okay. Before they go out, do they not practice?
Always. Okay. Not even sometimes. No. It's always. Yeah, it's always.
That is a beautiful narrative that archery culture has created. And I want that desperately in the shotgunning world. You talk to people now, do you pattern your gun? No. No. They don't know what choke they shoot. They don't know what shell they shoot. They don't put it on paper. They don't do anything. So what do you think happens?
Yeah.
They cripple
birds.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I want to change.
So
I'll die trying to change that narrative.
Yeah.
So how do you change it? What are you guys doing that's different, that sets you apart to go after and educate?
Okay, so the shell is way different in itself. The shell is very much like lead. So it's a bismuth alloy. And then once it's tumbled and polished, then we plate it with copper. Okay, so it becomes way denser than steel. And the pattern density is great. So instead of shooting like a BB or a 2, you could shoot a number 5. So you have, instead of 110 pellets, you have 297. Whatever the number is, like way more pellets. Okay. So more like lead used to be back in the day. Okay. Now is it more expensive? Yeah, for sure. Of course it is. What in America that's good has never cost.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is it's not that much more because we're direct to consumer. It's the only direct to consumer shot shell company there is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of it. Then these narratives, like put it on paper, learn how to pattern, which is no different. Can you imagine somebody drawing a sheep tag and they're like, no, I'll just go there with my rifle and put it, man, take my one. Yeah, no,
I can't imagine that.
That's not what happens. That isn't what happens, right? So my point is, this is going to sound weird, maybe really weird, but
at this point, I don't think so.
I mean, is a sheep worth more than a duck or a goose? I mean, if you're a hunter, if you're a sportsman, and you're going to take a life, why don't you get really good at doing it? Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love killing. I love killing and I love eating it. I just want to kill it. I don't want cripples.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and anyone who's seen an animal suffer after being shot, that's the last thing they want to see again.
And have to put it out of its misery. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
It's like you've definitely, if you don't feel bad,
there's something broken inside of you.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has to do the feeling of somebody maybe feeling differently about a bird versus a mammal, versus a whitetail, a sheep, elk. If there's just something they feel like it's a lesser animal, and
that's what I think.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
I do think that. Yeah, I want to change that.
Yeah,
it's still life.
Yeah,
right.
I think your passion for it, because you've lived it. You talk about your dad and your history there and traveling with him and hunting so many provinces and so many states. And I think you have a genuine love for that, for that species, right? So just the right guy to tell the story and start the revolution there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
right on.
I sure do. So anyway, that's Boss Shot Shell and copper plated shot and changing narratives. And that's really what I'm up to these days.
On a mission.
Right?
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, our buddy Dennis from North Carolina has a rather interesting question for us this week.
You ready for the question of the day, Lee?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So the question of the day is probably brought to you by Victory Archery, the carbon arrow experts.
Yes, my name is Dennis Mull. I live in Western North Carolina, and I'm just curious if you can answer why most outfitters try to rip us off when we go hunt with them.
Jesus.
Thank you.
I think Dennis has had some bad experiences.
Sounds like it.
I know. I'm a DIY guy at heart, so I'm really not a great guy to ask about that. But I don't know that I've ever been ripped off by. I'd have to, what's the context of the question? Ripped off.
I wonder if he's had some bad experiences where he's not, because not filling a tag is one thing. Like, I know guys that go on outfitted hunts. A buddy of mine that goes on an outfitted hunt every year, and he rarely fills a tag. It's not because he didn't have the opportunities. Opportunities were abundant and the service was great. The food was good. Like, the atmosphere was awesome, but he didn't fill a tag, and he felt like, hey, for a week, they treated me like royalty. I'm all good. Now, there's some people that might feel differently about that. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to go on an outfitted hunt, whitetail hunt anyways. I'm sure, you start talking like big game, it's even more ridiculously expensive. I don't know about waterfowl. I don't know how much they charge to do that type of stuff. But in general, my guess is there's a lot of bad actors out there in the outfitting world that you hear about where they might, especially with social media, where they pop up and maybe it's fake and they take the money and they don't have the lease, or maybe they took the money, they brought you in to go hunting and they don't have the lease, and then you're trespassing on somebody else's property. Like that stuff does happen. I think it gives all the outfitters a bad name, but there's plenty of good ones out there. Yeah, I mean, if he's getting ripped off repeatedly, or if it was one time or whatever, what I would say it's not most outfitters. I mean, I would say that there are some bad actors out there that ruin it for the group, but do your research and you find the good ones. Like there are so many places online to find good outfitters, and then, okay, so you find them online, you find their Facebook page. Okay, granted, they can heavily edit that and cut out all the bad comments. Well, then just do a search. Okay, start Googling that. Go to the chat sites and Google the outfitter's name, and you can find out all kinds of dirt on them if there is something to be found, or you can find out they're legitimate. Call them up and say, hey, I need 15 references, call the references up. I mean, you got to do a little bit of homework. You're going to spend that kind of money, vacation time, all that goes into it.
Big investment.
I'd be making dang sure that I'm going to the right place.
The other thing you can do is call the game warden that's responsible for the area. Cause if anyone's going to know about game violations, they're gonna be up to date.
That's a good idea.
So, and I've hunted at, I think, 2 outfitters in my life, and they become pretty much like family, like great places. Yeah. But you got to vet them. You got to make sure expectations are shared across the board, and you don't get there and, food's not included in this, or, you don't want to have surprises when you arrive.
Lodging's not included.
Where am I supposed to stay? So Dennis, I hope we helped you a little bit. It's kind of
sounds like he's had a rough trip there.
Yeah. Sorry about that, man.
I personally I've never seen that. I mean, I haven't had that happen. So I'm not a good guy to ask that to.
Well,
all right. So now
by the way, that picture in the background there.
Yeah.
I did shoot that one.
Oh, I know it. That hangs in my office. That hangs.
I just noticed that back there. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember shooting that one.
Yeah, that hangs in my office every day. And there's not. I get cool things from time to time from a partner. Dan Drake at Scent Crusher just sent me a cast iron skillet that was from 1908. Whoa. That he had resurfaced, and like a real cool story behind it. And another one that was from the 40s or 50s. Like, so from time to time I get some neat stuff, but this, not much of it stays in my office. And this was one of those things that you gave each of us a copy of that photo shoot. It was the first year we were with Under Armour, so it would have been like 2016 probably. And Lee and the crew came out to shoot us. Actually, it was just, I don't even know if Luke was on that one, but I know the folks at Under Armour, Christy and that they were there. Well, anyways, so Lee sent each one of us a copy of that. He signed it, and I believe that year we actually made the famous leather book too.
Wow, that's definitely in a book, dude, for sure.
Yeah, so that hangs in my office, but because you're on the podcast, I wanted to put it on the set for this one, and I look at the thing every day. It's one of my favorite photos of the 4 of us that we've ever had done, and it wasn't because of I don't know. It's not because of the partners involved. It's not because of the 4 of us. We have plenty of pictures of the 4 of us. It's because you shot it in the history of us and you and the crew. That's what makes it a cherishable thing for me. So
me too. Same thing.
Yep. Wanted to add it onto the podcast for this one, but I said it earlier, you probably can't see it. I'll have to get it when we get off the podcast and show it. It's on every podcast. I kind of replaced that shot with the one of the Mark and Terry, but it's on the second angle here. Every podcast, all the DoD TVs that we do, that one's always in there. It's the standard, man.
Very cool. Yeah, that's fun.
Speaking of standards,
All right, we got one last thing for you, then we'll cut you loose.
the wildlife word, and it's brought to you by the American Hunting Lease Association, your hunting access resource. And this one is in honor of Lee and his waterfowl background. It's about blue-winged teal. They're among the first waterfowl to migrate south, and while most overwinter in Mexico and Latin America, the farthest documented banded bird made its way from Saskatchewan to this distant country. Is that country A, Cuba, B, Florida,
B.
C, Matt gets the joke, C, Peru, not Peru, Illinois, or D, Norway?
I would say Peru.
Okay.
I'm
Peru,
gonna.
or Cuba. Peru, Cuba. I'll go with Peru.
Final
right.
answer.
I'm going with Peru because Lee's going with Peru.
That's a
I was gonna say Norway because you guys are like Norwegian.
Yeah. Well, Peru is right. Over 7,000 miles of traveling for a blue-winged teal.
Yeah, they go along. Those little buggers go a long way. They do.
And then someone
They're
shot
really
it.
cool. I mean,
Or crippled it.
Matt,
Apparently.
you've been here on my farm, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're here on my farm in I mean, the end of August, they're here.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, nothing else is even, it's still summer.
Yeah.
And they're here.
Huh.
Right. So, yeah, they get going really early, but they're a really, really cool bird. Super fun. Fun to hunt, great to eat. And they have an incredible migration. They do.
That's why people listen to our show for waterfowl talk.
So of all the, right. If you believe that, we'll tell you another one. So of all the things that all the places you've been to shoot, or all the places that you've been to hunt, which place was your favorite and why?
The Nunavut territories.
Nunavut.
In Canada, the Nunavut's. Because of how wild it is.
Yeah. Remote.
I mean, there's no people. I mean, I got dropped off there. And I've hunted snow geese there for 10 days at a time. No heat, no electricity, no nothing. I mean, it's survival.
And I bet you feel right at home, don't you?
No, it's it's awesome.
Awesome.
I can't wait to do it again. Yeah, it's awesome.
Lee, thanks so much for taking the time to hop on today with us.
Thank you guys. I mean, really, I thank you. It's like, I'm no secret here. I'm 61 years old. I'm getting older and I'm probably, a lot closer to the end of like what I've done for 3 decades than the beginning. But I thank you for having me on.
Lee, it's a pleasure, man. We love you and the family, and you are one of our closest friends, and we cherish all the experiences we've had together. Hope we have some more down the road here.
Well, I really had a show, a Hope Shot Show or anything. I really hope to give your dad and your uncle a hug for sure. But for sure, that's what it's about for me right now is my old buddies. So
that's right.
Right.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you. And until next time, everybody, peace out.
See ya.
Later, dudes.
DeerCast is giving you the chance to hunt with Mark and Terry Drury. Head over to DeerCast.com to enter.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.